Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to Wasteland Talks, my weekly talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And this week, I have my friend Diana here, who is a big Tim Burton fan, as you could probably tell by her Edward Scissorhands shirt peeking over there. There we go. And we're going to be counting down our top 3 Tim Burton films because 'tis the season for German expressionism in modern times because it's Halloween. But Diana, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Literally, I could talk about Tim Burton and let's not forget Danny Elfman because they're like the wonder duo. And
Yep.
Danny Elfman's kind of my very weird celebrity crush. I just love talking about them. The two of them make magic together and they have such a history. And I'm glad they're on the upswing of their partnership.
Yes. And what's this? But you're right. They're a dynamic duo. And Danny Elfman has 2 of them with Tim Burton and then Sam Raimi. So that's always fun.
Yeah.
But so how this is going to work. But before that, shameless plugs all around. So Diana, what would you like to shamelessly plug for everybody watching?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm at Diana Gebbia, Gebbia. I talk a lot of reality TV there, but I am branching out into the movie sphere. And I do have a column on Scribe magazine now, which you can check out. And then also, if you're into Bravo, the Believe in Bravo Besties podcast.
There you go. And Diana and I launched a new show on the Scribe podcast. So shameless plugs for both of us. Check out the Wasteland Rewind. We just talked about Midsummer and it went right up on the podcast. So it's out there right now for you to listen to. But we're here to talk about some Tim Burton and how this is going to work. Diana's going to give her number 3. I'll give my number 3. And I figure you could figure out the rest from there. All the way up to 1, and there's only 3 of them, so there'll be 6 movies we're talking about. And maybe we'll throw some honorable mentions there at the end. But Diana, what is your number 3?
Okay, so I'm glad you said honorable mentions at the end because I really had a tough time deciding with number 3. And I think I might surprise you with what makes my number 3 and what makes my honorable mention. But number 3 for me is Peewee'S Big Adventure. That movie, that movie is so silly, but in the best way. Like if you were having a bad day, you turn it on and like, how could you not laugh at Pee Wee Herman? Like he does the silliest thing. One of my favorite things is when he calls Dottie and he's like, I'm in Texas, and she doesn't believe him. And he's like, oh, the stars at night. And like, deep in the heart of Texas. Like, it's so silly. Yep. Like, I'm listening to a podcast and they're like, this is a movie that should not work because it's so silly. And it does. And that's what brings me so much joy about it. Also, I'm going to mention it every single time I bring up a movie. Danny Elfman, the music. This was actually his first score that he did for Tim Burton. And then when Tim approached him, he thought that he was just going to do a song on the soundtrack with Oingo Boingo. And he's like, no, I want you to score it. And actually there was a back and forth with his agent. He's like, I'm not going to do it. And his agent was like, well, you call him and you tell him you don't want to do it because I just did the deal for you. And he's like, I guess I'm doing this. And this turned out to be just the start of a very prolific career for him.
Very, very true. And Danny Elfman is one of the most renowned composers out there. Yeah. And the thing I most remember about this movie is the crazy trucker lady and her eyes being like, ah! That scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. And then you're like, well, Tim Burton, right off the bat, scaring the crap out of kids. And and you know what? I have not watched this in years. So like, I think it's worth a rewatch at this point because like, to be honest, I can barely remember anything because I know it's about his bike. My bike! Yeah. And like, obviously he goes and making a big deal about being in the Alamo.
Yeah.
And that whole thing.
He's been at the
Alamo. Yeah. And obviously, do I remember correctly, like Large Marge or something like that? Yeah.
Large Marge sent you.
Yep. And Large Marge scared the crap out of me. Did what he did best, just scare the crap out of people. Which this was so interesting because like I can guarantee you, like, people would be like, what's Tim Burton's first directorial debut, like feature debut? It's like, oh, Edward Scissorhands or Beetlejuice. It's like, no, it was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And it's so funny that, like, that's where it all started for him. And, like, he worked at Disney. And that obviously didn't work out in the end. And
it did help him out because that's how they got the storyline for Nightmare.
Yep. The most confused story ever, because everyone's like, Tim Burton directed that. It's like, no, he didn't. Poor Henry Selick, not getting it credit.
I know.
But you know, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is definitely a fun thing. And like, Pee-wee Herman was a huge thing at that point. And, you know, Pee-wee's Playhouse and all that kind of stuff. It's like word of the day and all that jazz. But like, it's a fun thing, and I definitely have to go check it out. I haven't watched it in a while.
You do. Save it for when you're just having a really, like, you come home from work and you've just had enough of the world and you need to like zone out. That is the perfect movie. Like, he's just so silly. Like, I know you have, but what am I? Like, classic.
Exactly. I am typing it into my watch list now.
It's on HBO Max, I think.
There you go. But yeah. And now for something completely different. So my number 3, and this was a toss-up between 2 movies of the same franchise, because I think, like, I had to put Batman on here. Like, I felt like I had to. And I went with 1989's Batman.
Yeah.
And for a whole entire generation of people, Michael Keaton was Batman. And Michael Keaton, who was like the strangest choice.
Yeah.
Because at that point it was like Mr. Mom, Michael Keaton. And like, Michael Keaton's not like a physically imposing person, but he has crazy eyes. He's crazy. And I love that moment where he's like, let's get nuts. And it's just like, well, there's Beetlejuice right there. But like, I love his way of portraying Bruce Wayne as this like odd recluse billionaire, because like, I feel like he would be. At least that's exactly what the new Batman is. Our Pats is one awkward dude in Batman. But like, Michael Keaton, of course, Jack Nicholson's Joker. Because everyone will probably say that Heath Ledger's Joker is the greatest Joker of all time. And it's hard to argue that. But there's something special about Jack Nicholson just going full-blown Jack Nicholson. And, you know, the whole, what kind of crazy world do we live in where a man in a batsuit steals my press? This town needs an enema. And just, I love Jack Nicholson. And he has so much fun in this. And, you know, it didn't go full-blown, like, gothic German expressionism like Batman Returns did, which literally every color in that movie is black or white. But I love like the retro gangster style of Gotham in it, and Prince. You got some Prince thrown in there too, who originally was supposed to do the whole soundtrack.
Yes.
And Tim Burton's like, no.
Well, actually, I think Danny Elfman said if he does it, they were supposed to collaborate, and I think he said if he does it, I walk.
That is such a late 80s thing to do. Like, we're going to make a Batman movie and have all Prince music. And
yeah,
it's
that
like,
would be so wild. Especially because that Batman theme is just so iconic, like the score.
Yes. That Danny Elfman Batman theme is one of the greatest pieces of theme music in the history of movies. And oh my God, I love it to pieces. It was so amazing that they couldn't even find a new one for the Batman animated series. They're just like, we can't beat this. Just got to use the same one.
I saw him do it at Coachella. It's one of the ones I recorded on my phone. Partially because I wanted to send it to my ex's best friend because my ex loves Batman. I was like,
hey, look what I'm listening to.
Right? But no, he's just brilliant. And to your point, you brought up a good point about the Joker before, and how everyone would argue that Ledger's Joker is the greatest. But I feel like they're two very different sides to the same coin, and that what makes them like so beautiful, because obviously you could give anyone a different part and no two actors are going to act it the same way. So Ledger is really that like dark, like twisted soul of the Joker, where Nicholson brings in more of that like comedic villain aspect to it.
Yeah. And at that point, because like you had Cesar Romero's Joker, who is like the most iconic, fun Joker. And at this point, it's like, that's really the only kind of Joker fans of TV or movies knew. And it's just like, who do you get? You get Jack. And he just does his thing. And like, obviously Nolan had a completely different vision, and his Joker works in that movie to perfection. And it's horrifying. But, and this is much more like darkly twisted and funny, and that works for Tim Burton. Because like the moment where he has like the hand buzzer and like leaves the guy a singed corpse, and he just like walks away, it's just like, oh my God. And it's because like obviously in the comics and stuff like that, the Joker's like thin as a rail, like long face and exaggerated and everything. Jack Nicholson embodies that energy. Obviously, Jack Nicholson didn't look that way in 1989, but he had so much fun. Even like the silly stuff with like him coming into the Prince music, like dancing around that art gallery. It just, Jack Nicholson had so much fun making all that money.
Yeah.
Because they probably paid him a shit ton of money to be in that movie.
Hell yeah.
Jack Nicholson didn't come cheap in 1989, so
I'd say it was worth it.
It definitely was worth it. See, that's why they got Michael Keaton, because they couldn't afford anybody with a bigger name. It's just a shame he didn't stick around, because God, George Clooney, Batman.
Oh yeah.
The Bat MasterCard, don't leave the Bat Cave without it. Please no. Please no. It was quick honorable mention though. So close to picking Batman Returns, because God, Danny DeVito's Penguin is demented.
Yeah.
And Michelle Pfeiffer is a whole other kind of sexy on screen. But Diana, what's your number two?
First of all, before I get into number two, you unlocked a memory with the Bat MasterCard. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. That was amazing. But my number two, speaking of Michael Keaton, is Beetlejuice.
There you go.
I love Winona Ryder. She is one of my favorite actresses to this day in Stranger Things. She kills it. And her as Lydia is just so relatable when she's like writing her like suicide note, and she's like, by the time you have read this, I will have fallen, and she's like plummeted. Like, we can all relate. Like, no, make it sound more dramatic. Like, she is a queen. Her fashion is top notch in that movie. I just think everything about that movie is so well done. Again, shout out to Danny Elfman, another amazing score. Fun fact, I'm like so filled with like random fun facts about Danny Elfman, it's embarrassing. But originally Lionel Newman was supposed to conduct the score when they were recording, and they just didn't get along because he was making it sound more jazzy, and it's like a very like staccato, like and so they got into it kind of like. Danny was giving all the notes to the musicians, and Lionel was like, okay, Beethoven. And then like Danny's like, it's not working. And he went over to, I don't know if it was Burton or someone else at WB, and they like switched it out. But I just think that's a hilarious story, because it's one of the greatest scores. I'm biased as all hell. But oh my God, I just get chills whenever I think of that movie. Alec Baldwin, first of all, it's like hard for me to remember that's him, just because it does not look like the Alec Baldwin we know today. But what did he yell at a flight attendant or something like that? Like the controversial Alec Baldwin.
I only know Alec Baldwin as Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock.
Okay.
That's Alec Baldwin in my head. And it's like, why are you wearing a tuxedo? It's like, Lemon, it's after 6 o'clock. what do you think I am, a farmer? Um, but like, it is really weird seeing Alec Baldwin like young and like not looking like Alec Baldwin in this movie.
It doesn't look anything like him. Like I mean, I knew it was him, but I had to really like double take for a second.
Yeah.
I was, oh my God, that's him. And what I love, another thing I just love about this movie, it is a very dark movie. Like originally it's supposed to be a horror movie, like a full out horror movie. But they changed some things around and I'm glad they did because it has like a whimsical feel to it.
Yeah.
Really brings out the spirit of the movie.
Yeah, and you know, you have the whole like musical number part at the dinner party.
Oh my God.
So ridiculous. Tim Burton is his own brand of style and atmosphere. Cause like I don't think a whole lot of people could get so dark and creepy and funny and silly and campy all at the same time. And I really think Michael Keaton is one of his muses, because like obviously Johnny Depp is like Tim Burton's like there, and Helena Bonham Carter as well. But like Michael Keaton though has Beetlejuice in this, and that's the thing, you can't even tell it's him because like the makeup's so amazing and the only way that you can really tell it is him is in other movies where he starts acting like Beetlejuice and like that weird like crazy, and he is so great in this movie. And also like the special effects and everything with like the whole giant worm snake things and everything, ridiculous. And also shout out to Moira Rose, because Catherine is amazing.
Well, another thing I like about this movie, going back to Keaton for a second, he doesn't come out, like you don't really get introduced to Beetlejuice until 45 minutes, I think it is, into the movie. It's pretty far into the movie, and for him to be the title character and you don't meet him all the way into the movie, like he carries that movie very well, because that's difficult. Like you have a movie about you, but you don't come out until it's like near over. Like that's hard, but he just manages to be so memorable and he just carries it.
Yeah, pretty messed up. And this is a great cast, and it's a great Tim Burton cast, because like you have Jeffrey Jones in it too, who pops up in so many of his films, and even like Glenn Shaddix, who's even like the mayor in Nightmare Before Christmas and everything. It's such a fun cast, and Winona Ryder really got a big spotlight because of Tim Burton, and famously was supposed to be in The Godfather Part 3.
I didn't know that.
And Johnny Depp convinced her to leave for Edward Scissorhands.
I'm glad she did.
I guess it depends on which movie you want to suffer because of it. Because do I want to watch Sofia Coppola die and have the world's worst death scene again? No, probably not. But that's a trade-off. Obviously, it worked out for Tim Burton. It worked out for Edward Scissorhands. But like, yeah, this is such a great cast, because even with like Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis right there at the front of it, and like that's a sad story. It's like this young couple and they die, and they're just stuck as ghosts, and having this like haunted house movie, and then you throw in some kind of like weird whatever the hell Beetlejuice is.
Yeah, well, obviously he's a bio-exorcist, whatever that is. But the original title of the movie was supposed to be like House Ghosts. So I guess he's like, I know they're the ghosts, the Maitlands, but I guess like he's a ghost too, like. And
I love how they like the title of the movie's Beetlejuice instead of like his actual name.
Yeah.
Because nobody would be able to spell it, so they're just like, let's just make it easier for them.
Yeah.
But so my number 2 is a film that really gets me in the feels, and that's Big Fish. Oh my God. That movie hits on a whole nother level of emotion. And I feel like that's something special for Tim Burton, because like, I don't feel like there's a ton of Tim Burton movies where you feel so deeply personal to characters and stuff like that. Because a lot of it's like it's all about like the whimsical, dark creepiness of it all
Yeah.
and the crazy characters. But like Big Fish is such a poignant story about like fathers and sons and legacies and tall tales, which, oh my God, Albert Finney and Ewan McGregor in this movie are fantastic. Oh,
Mhm.
do I ever believe that Ewan McGregor would grow old into Albert Finney? No, not for a second. But Ewan McGregor is obviously Star Wars fans thinks he's like God or Jesus or both. But like Ewan McGregor is such a talented actor, and he sells those scenes of like these crazy tales with like a giant and a werewolf, Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And like a creepy old witch, which is Helena Bonham Carter and everything. And the crazy adventures that he goes on in this film are great. But the scenes with like I love Billy Crudup too. I don't think he gets enough credit for how talented he is as an actor. And him and Albert Finney playing off with each other, just the scene in the bathtub with Jessica Lange and Albert Finney, I'm like, God, they love each other. And there's like those sweet moments and stuff like that. And, you know, it's something that just takes you on an adventure.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like most people probably have somebody in her family that's like that big tall tales kind of person.
Mhm.
Mine's my Uncle Jim, 100%. And my grandpa, he definitely, my Uncle Jim found it very honestly from my grandpa. And, you know, my grandpa would schmooze the hell out of people. He would definitely be the one trying to tell all these stories and stuff like that. And he reminds me a lot of Albert Finney's character in this.
Aw.
And, you know, I got my love for storytelling from somewhere. And I think this kind of film just hits me in a very personal way. And I think that's why I love it so much.
That's really special. Oh, I love that. Like, I feel like I can't add anything just because of what you said, like, really summed up the spirit of it and just made it so special. And everything you said about the cast is like hits the nail on the head. Oh, I love that. I have all the feels right now, like you started off with.
You're welcome. So, because like honestly, it's kind of weird. I probably watched Big Fish like 4 or 5 times at this point, and like every time it just hits me. So I guess
Oh.
that's why it sticks with me. But if you don't want to add anything, what's your number one then, Diana?
Yeah, I feel like I can't follow that. That's just so beautiful. My number one is Edward Scissorhands. I
No, you don't say.
shocker of the evening. This movie is just so like I don't even know how to put it. Like it is special to me. I mean, not in the same way Big Fish is
Yeah.
special to you, but for me, it's kind of like I grew up on fairy tales, and like in a way, this is kind of like a dark fairy tale when it doesn't have the traditional happy ending you would expect, but there's that like longing there between Kim and Edward, like on my shirt.
Yeah.
Like you want them to be together and they can't be together. And I feel like everyone has that person in their lives, like the one who got away. You know what I mean? So it kind of tugs at those heartstrings. Costumes, incredible.
Yes.
Like those scissors, I mean, Madon. I've seen them. They're at the Academy Museum, so I've seen the whole suit and the scissors. They're enormous. Like, God bless Johnny Depp for walking
Did
around.
they lend them out to Timothy Chalamet for that Super Bowl commercial?
I don't know.
Because did you see that Super Bowl?
I don't remember the commercial though.
It is basically Edward Scissorhand Jr. and it's just Timothy Chalamet as Edward Scissorhands.
Cool. I gotta look that up after this because I don't remember. But yeah, they're massive. I feel like they're the size of Timothy Chalamet.
Might be, honestly.
I love, again, shout out to Winona Ryder. I love her character in this movie because, first of all, Kim is very different from pretty much anything else she's ever played. She's usually got that like dark character.
Yeah.
And She was that like bubbly blonde cheerleader. But while she had this very delicate side to her, there is a side of her that you do not want to mess with Kim Boggs. Like, she is a boss ass bitch, and we stand. Like, I just love, her standing up to Jimmy, and like because he was so terrible. Oh my God.
That nerd from Breakfast Club, Anthony Michael Hall, turned out to be a complete douchebag.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I just remember the first time watching it, I'm like, this guy sucks. And like, we want her to be with Edward. And it's, again, like, it's the fairy tale. Because I've heard critiques, like I was listening to one podcast and they're like, the love story between Kim and Edward, like, where did it develop? I'm like, but that is the magic of it all. Don't you understand? Like, they just fell in love and we don't have to question why. We believe it because it's just so beautiful.
Well, I think too, Edward represents something so very different from, because you can tell she does not love this ridiculous, like neon colored suburb life that she's living. And Edward is literally the complete opposite of it, because everybody is in your face and obnoxious, and Edward's this quiet, sensitive person and dressed all in black without like pink and bright green and stuff like that. And I think there's like, obviously there's the characters, but I think there's this deeper meaning to like what she sees in him. And obviously he feels this connection to his family. I love Diane Wiest in it.
She's amazing.
And then of course,
Avon lady. But I mean, my mom, like, she did it when I was little, so they were past the days of ringing the doorbell. But that's something, like, because I grew up with the Avon products. So just to see that in the mom character, and that's something that my mom has in common with her, like, it just made me fall in love with her even more. And the part where she's doing the makeup and they, like, pan out and you see his face and it's just, like, slathered in product. It's, like, just the innocence of it all. It's fabulous.
And you got to have Alan Arkin.
Yes.
The dad. My God. I love Alan Arkin. Any movie can use a dash of Alan Arkin. And just look at Little Miss Sunshine. That's part of the movie.
I love when they're drinking in the basement and he's giving him the alcohol. He's like, it's lemonade. And then the next day he goes over to, what's her name, Joyce's yard. And she's like, want lemonade? And then it's actually lemonade. And he just like vomits. Because again, we've all been there.
Maybe most of us.
Most of it, true.
I've never been. I barely drink lemonade. So the what was I going to say? Oh, one of my favorite things about this too, and this is just a small thing, but getting to see Vincent Price one last time on screen, because like Vincent Price is one of the most iconic voices in film, and I just love that Tim Burton got him to be the inventor at the beginning, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
At the beginning when he dies, and you're just like, it's just like a cat. And also, sending all of the women in this neighborhood to horny jail, because bonks all around, because they get way too turned on to those haircuts. Way too turned on.
Okay, this is my one. If I have to nitpick something about this movie, how old is Edward? Because the moms are all hitting on him, but like he wants to be with Kim, and it's like Kim 18. Like, how old is Edward? But he's technically ageless, I guess, because he's like a humanoid. But like, how old is Edward?
I don't know. That is a can of worms that I never thought about, nor was I going to open, but now I'm going to be thinking about that for a while now.
On people.
Yeah. And also, one other little shout out to a great reference, because I've said German expressionism multiple times on this episode so far.
Yeah.
Because Edward Scissorhands' look is based off of the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is Nick Cage's favorite movie in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. But it's just like, it's a like 1920s horror film. And if you look it up and see like the sleepwalker in it, it's Edward, except he doesn't have scissor hands. So basically take off the scissor hands and that's the look to this character. And because that's the thing, Tim Burton obviously is highly influenced by a lot of those films. And it's really cool how he can bring that to life on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. One more thing about Edward Scissorhands, because just like you keep saying German expressionism, I keep saying Danny Elfman. I need to say Ice Dance. That is my favorite song of all time. One day I was driving around. This is like so weird, but I was like, I think I want to give birth with this song playing in the room because it's just so beautiful. And could you imagine like your first time ever hearing a song and it's Ice Dance by Danny Elfman? Like, what a great tone. Yeah.
So Diana, when you have a child someday, and if they don't like Tim Burton and Danny Elfman, what are you going to do?
They're going up for adoption.
Disowned.
Disowned.
But now my number one, which I feel like is one of Tim Burton's more serious kinds of films, but still captures that spirit of his work, is Ed Wood. I love this movie because, one, Edward D. Wood Jr. was one of the worst directors in the history of cinema. And I've watched his work. It's atrocious. Like, I've watched Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's really bad. But, oh my God, this person, Ed Wood, is so endearing and just... he will stop at nothing to reach his dream. And Johnny Depp gives such a odd, quirky performance, which I guess is not saying a lot. That's almost like every single Johnny Depp performance. But like there's something about him with just like the smile. Just like he's always smiling, trying to hold back the fact that my life is shattering before me. And it's just that wonderful way that he's just masking that the whole film. And this is in beautiful black and white. It is shot so beautifully. And this cast, like Martin Landau, won Best Supporting Actor for playing Bela Lugosi. He's like, pull the strings! And obviously, I can't bring this movie up around some of my friends who are diehard Pulp Fiction fans because Martin Landau beat Samuel L. Jackson for Best Supporting Actor. Which also, Jules should have been Best Actor, thank you. But also, yeah, that's a tough sell. But, you know, this felt like one of those, like, Martin Landau's been doing this for a long time. Congrats. But I don't want to sell him short because his performance as Bela Lugosi as an addict and like an aging star who can't come to grips with where he is at this point. And every time somebody says Boris Karloff, he just loses it. But like the cast of this is ridiculous. You have Sarah Jessica Parker as his original girlfriend, and then Patricia Arquette. Ed Wood's pulling some big names here. And you have like, there's even like a scene where Vincent D'Onofrio is Orson Welles, and they dub over somebody doing Orson Welles' impression over Vincent D'Onofrio. And this is such a random quote, but one of my favorite lines with this movie is like, sometimes the studio is like, they want me to have Charlton Heston playing a Mexican. And I'm just like, and they did. That actually happened.
Really?
In one of Orson Welles' movies. Yeah. Hollywood was a very interesting place back then.
Oh, yeah. Still is, by the way.
Yeah. But like Bill Murray's in this as like a supporting role, and he's absolutely hilarious. But like just top to bottom, such a great cast of characters. And it's such an endearing story because like even though he sucked, like Ed Wood was not a good director.
Yeah.
But the amount of passion to make his dream come true. Yeah, did he defraud a bunch of religious people? He did. He did indeed. But like just the resolve to get this all done and him to actually live out his dream. was something special. And I love that about this movie. And, you know, the score is great. It has like this very old school kind of like creepy, you're watching like a 50s monster feature kind of score and everything. And it's just such a fun time, and I absolutely loved it. And oddly enough, this is not Danny Elfman.
No.
It's Howard Shore, who is also a very talented composer, but it's one of those kinds of films where it's just like, this legitimately got Tim Burton some attention.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen a lot from like the Academy and stuff like that. And it wouldn't, I don't think it really would have happened again until like Sweeney Todd. But this is, if you haven't seen Ed Wood, because I know this definitely isn't like his most seen film, check it out, people.
Yeah, no, it's funny you said that because that's still one I haven't seen. I did watch the trailer because my friend Raj, this was a few weeks ago, which by the way, like on another note, you need to meet my friend Raj. You guys would get along so well. I was looking through movies and I don't remember what I ended up watching, but he sent me the trailer and he's like, you need to watch this. And I don't remember why I didn't watch it that night, but it is on my list. And now, like after your glowing review, I definitely have to give it a watch.
There you go. And we just gave all these wonderful people 6 different Tim Burton movies to check out. So we had some variety here on our Tim Burton list. But what are some of the other ones you want to throw out there?
Yeah, no, my honorable mention, again, not Tim Burton directed, but I just have to put it on there being the Disney fan I am. Nightmare Before Christmas. That movie is just so, it's great because you can't tell whether it's a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie.
It's both.
Yeah, exactly. Why not both? I am a Disneyland pass holder, and this time of year, from October all the way through December, they changed the Haunted Mansion, which is my favorite ride, into the Nightmare Before Christmas. It's the Haunted Holiday. So you got Jack in there, and like Sally, Lock, Shock, and Barrel. They're all bringing you through the crazy room. It's just very like nostalgic for me. I think it's really cool because it adds like a creepy, whimsical feel to like one of the holiest days of the year for some people. Like it's like you can't touch Christmas because it's so, you know, it's holy and religious, but like Tim Burton was like, you know, watch me with this story, like I'm gonna do that. And just another thing I love about it so much, it's like Jack's character, he is so like very innocently trying to be something he's not, and like he's really giving it his all, and it's not working out for him, but it's still very entertaining for us to watch. And again, another Danny Elfman fact, writing the music for Jack, and he ended up becoming the singing part for Jack. That was so easy for him because at the time he was kind of done with Oingo Boingo and he wanted to move on to the next thing. So he related to Jack because he's tired of being like the Pumpkin King and scaring everyone. And, you know, they're so good at one thing, but they're ready for what's next. So when you think of that just on like a deeper meaning, it's just a really great movie, honestly.
Yes, this would be my number one if it was directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And Danny Elfman is the Pumpkin King.
He is. And
it's funny because the actual actor who voices Jack, aka Prince Humperdinck, from Princess Bride, that like everybody's so great in that film too, and I love the Oogie Boogie song so much.
It's so good. When I got my first pumpkin spice coffee of the year and I went in my car and Disney Radio was like number 1, that was playing and I was like, 'tis the season, Oogie.
There it is. And of course, all the wonderful renditions of This Is Halloween. Marilyn Manson, quite the character himself.
I danced to that.
There you go. Now, my one, because there's a lot of like, I love Corpse Bride. Probably my biggest honorable mention, and this came really close to getting on here, was Sweeney Todd. There's a couple members of the cast that I feel like are a little miscast, and like, sorry, Helena Carter, you are not Angela Lansbury, because. And to be fair, Johnny Depp isn't Len Carew either, but like they fit in like Tim Burton's world. And oh my God, Alan Rickman Sir, you gandered. And it's just like, I just love that. And Sacha Baron Cohen as an Italian, but not really an Italian. It's so dark and creepy, and I love the fact that they didn't promote this as a musical.
Right.
They didn't put any songs in the trailers, and people just showed up like, this is a musical? It's like, yeah, it's a dark one. And because the thing is, like, Sondheim, rest in peace, was amazing. And I love his musicals, and this is such a great one. And I've either listened to or watched, not live, but different versions of it. Oh, Josh Groban's going to be Sweeney Todd on Broadway. And I'm like, I want to see this.
That's going to be really cool.
And I'm going to
Do you remember what year Sweeney Todd came out? Because I just remember it being like this big cultural like phenomenon, especially for people my age. But I feel like I was either in junior high school or high school. I can't remember.
2007. So
okay, I was in high school. I was 15.
Yeah.
And that was, it all makes sense now because that was like when my friend and I, Marielle, we were scene kids and we go to the Hot Topic and like you walked in Hot Topic and Sweeney Todd. And I feel like that's almost the Edward Scissorhands of our era. Because when Edward Scissorhands came out, I was a baby. So like I didn't get to see it until I was a little bit older. But like we got to see Sweeney Todd come out, you know?
Yeah, because Edward Scissorhands came out in 90.
Oh, then I wasn't even born yet. No, it was 2 years before I was born. I thought it was 90.
So, yeah, Sweeney Todd was a big thing. And I feel like it brought back all that, like, goth, like, that Tim Burton, Johnny Depp look. Because, like, honestly, Sweeney Todd was probably, like, the last really strong Tim Burton and Johnny Depp had collaboration, because like Alice in Wonderland I feel like is pretty divisive. It's a weird ass movie. And then like Dark Shadows just felt like Johnny Depp was like sleepwalking through it.
I didn't even finish that movie, and I feel like that's sacrilege for me to say, being that I love Burton Elfman, but like my God, I had to turn that off. Sorry.
Yeah, and that was the last one. They haven't worked together since. And
no, they Wednesday on Netflix. It's coming out November 23rd. So I mean, not a movie, but a series.
Wait, is Johnny Depp in it?
Oh, I thought you meant.
That's who I was talking about.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, Dark Shadows was Johnny Depp's last movie with Tim Burton.
Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense then.
But yeah, Wednesday does come out. Comes out for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Wednesday. And I'm also excited. October 29th, I am going to see Danny Elfman at the Hollywood Bowl. So he'll be performing most of the scores we've mentioned.
There you go. I just want to listen to all of Nightmare performed because that would be absolutely amazing.
It's just amazing. Like at Coachella, because he did a lot of, obviously he did Boingo, he did his new stuff with Big Mess and a lot of other scores. But when it came time for Jack Skellington, he literally went backstage and had like a pinstripe jacket, and like Jack was in front of us, and we're like, yes,
there you go,
King, we stand.
Indeed. So we just talked about a lot of Tim Burton. If you haven't really dove into Tim Burton before, you got a lot of great recommendations from us. Mm-hmm. So go and enjoy them. But Diana, thank you so much, as always, for coming on.
Thank you. I hope your fans aren't like, boy, that girl is creepy AF.
Diana's cool, and you all would love her. So there you go. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.